And again, at this time, we are beginning services for Arno Filerman. Officiating services today is Cantor Jennifer Frost.
Eyona harim me'ayin yavo Ezri me'im Adonai oseh shamayim va'aretz. Hine lo yanum velo ishan, shomer Yisrael. Hine lo yanum velo ishan, shomer Yisrael. Eyona harim me'ayin yavo Ezri me'im Adonai oseh shamayim va'aretz. I lift my eyes to the mountains. What is the source of my help? My help comes from Adonai, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your protector will not slumber. See, the protector of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your guardian. God is your protection at your right hand. The sun will not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. God will guard you from all harm. God will guard your soul, your going and your coming now and forever. Birth is a beginning, and death a destination. But life is a journey, a going, a growing from stage to stage, from maturity to childhood and back, youth to age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion, and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength or strength to weakness, and often back again. From health to sickness, and back we pray to health again. From offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, and grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backward or ahead we see that the victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, but life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage made stage by stage, from birth to death to life everlasting. The 23rd Psalm. Adonai roi lo exar bino deshayar bitseni alamei menuchot yanaleini nafshi yashovev yancheini v'magelei tzedek yancheini v'magelei tzedek leman shemo gam ki eilech mageit salmavet lo irara ki ata imadi shivtecha umishanetecha heimaya nachamuni Ta'aroch lefanai shulchan neged zorai dishanta v'shemen roshi kosi revaya Ach tov v'chesed yirdefuni kol yemei chayai v'shavti beveit Adonai leorech yamim Adonai roi lo echsar Adonai roi lo echsar The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. I'm so sorry for your loss. Arno was an extraordinary human being, one filled with grace and humility and tremendous love. And we are an ancient people, and we're well acquainted with grief and the valley of the shadows. Death and sorrow, they're not strangers to us yet. The centuries have taught us that a good name endures beyond the grave, and Arno had a good name. And the centuries have taught us that there is strength in faith. So we say now with Job, Adonai Natan, God, you gave us Arno, who will not be forgotten. For all that was good and enduring in his life, we offer the deepest thanks of our hearts. Adonai Lakach, and God, you have taken away. We pray now for the strength to turn our broken hearts into an altar of trust, before which we acknowledge your sovereignty and your love as we say now, Yehi Shem Adonai Mavarach. Blessed be the name of God now and forever. It does great honor to our loved ones when those that knew us best rise up to speak words of tribute and of love. And I know how much Brian wanted to be here today. And he wrote beautiful words. And so it's my honor now to read his words of blessing for his beloved father-in-law. He says, I'd like to thank you for coming today to honor and remember Arno, a man who exudes unbridled joy on every occasion and unconditional love with every relationship. And it is heartbreaking that I can't be here today. Arno was someone who never missed an event and always showed up for others. I met Arno when I was 15 years old and started dating Stacey, a remarkably uncomfortable way to kick off a 26-year relationship and friendship. Growing up, I always appreciated Arno's incredible pride in his family. Everything his children did was impressive. No milestone was too small to celebrate. He maintained enthusiasm with his grandchildren and genuinely enjoyed children's theater productions, sporting events, and recitals. I cannot emphasize genuinely enjoyed enough. Arno showed how to care deeply about others and around us. He kept in touch with a wide group of long-standing relationships from childhood all the way to Tamarisk. He always wanted to help and was typically ready with a referral for a restaurant, bakery, plumber, electrician, or repair shop that he would say, quote, "You need to give a chance." He knew the life stories of the servers at his favorite restaurants, the clerks at his favorite shops, and the small business owners all over the Chicago area. Arno wasn't perfect. He had his quirks, but they were a big piece of his charm, and he was incredibly trusting. On a trip to Israel over a decade ago, Arno and Marcia decided to visit the ancient city of Petra in Jordan. While at the border, Arno asked the Israeli soldiers if it was okay to wear his giant "I Love Israel" hat in Jordan. The soldiers said, of course, and sent him to the Jordanian checkpoint. The Jordanian soldiers did not care for the hat. 5 minutes later, Arno returned to the Israeli soldiers, now laughing, who offered to watch the hat for him until his return. Most importantly, Arno had the wisdom of being present all the time and living in the moment, a skill that I wish we picked up from him. He enjoyed a nice visit, interesting conversation, and a good meal. He loved being with his dog Lucy, watching football with his children, and learning about the mind-numbing YouTube videos his grandchildren were watching. He was up for anything, and I don't recall there ever being a show or a meal that he didn't like. Arno was very lucky. His children loved him immensely and took amazing care of him. They catered to his every need and found new, exciting ways to enhance his life. His generosity was matched fivefold. We are all very lucky. There are a few people like Arno in this world, and they encourage us to be neighborly, generous, and supportive. I am grateful to you all who are here today, and in keeping with Arno's memory, I'd like to share some unsolicited referrals. The Palm Court in Arlington Heights is a phenomenal value for fine dining. The best dessert to bring to somebody's house is a Leonard's chocolate coffee cake. True. Max and Benny's has the best potato latkes. Dr. Leo Gordon and Sarah Miata of Northwestern Medicine are truly one-of-a-kind oncologists. Tamarisk is a wonderful facility. Brian says thank you. It is my honor now to invite Barry to come up and say a few words, followed by Stacey.
Thank you guys. Thank everybody for coming today. As you guys know well, my father was an incredible man, and that's why you guys are all here today. I want to start with a funny story because Dad would want us to be here laughing. I was reminded the other day when I was talking with my cousin Robin about Dad's passing, and when I ended the call with her, I mispronounced her name as Boisfort. Now, we know that Robin's last name is Beauvoir, but ever since I was little, Dad called them Boisfort. The Boisforts. So that's what I thought it was. And until a few months ago, when we took Dad and attended Danielle's wedding, while we were sitting at the wedding, we heard the name Beauvoir. And I tell this story not to make fun of Dad, but to show that there were so many innocent blunders in his life that made him who he was, and Brian's example was awesome. Dad couldn't go out to eat at a restaurant without having a 15-minute conversation with the waitress about her entire life. I'm sorry. He had his favorite people at checkout lines and at the grocery stores, and would search them out every time, and they knew who he was, and they enjoyed every moment of conversation with him. I want to talk briefly about a time when Mom passed, and I moved in with Dad to take care of him while he was fighting cancer. And he and I ended up taking care of each other because I ended up becoming very sick as well. And every day, his only concern was how I was doing and how I was feeling. Dad always put himself before other people, especially his kids and a lot of other people, especially his wife, and sometimes to his detriment. But that didn't matter because that's how big his heart was. I watched my father treat my mother like a princess, and he was a shining example on how to treat women. And as a father, Dad was always trying to get me into sports because he loved sports, and it didn't matter what it was, but it never took. Instead, I got into music and cars, and no matter what it was, Dad was always my biggest fan. He put all his free time into his kids and later on his grandkids. And my dad didn't always understand the decisions that I made, but he always supported them, and he was there to cheer me on. My dad taught me how to love unconditionally and to never stop trying. Dad, you're a huge part of my life, and you will be so missed. I love you.
I struggle with how to start this because there's so much I want to say about Dad. Cantor Frost will do a great job describing the journey Dad took to becoming the man I knew. As I reflect on this journey, Dad showed consistent resilience in the face of challenge, a strong connection to family, even when they were spread across the country, and a passion for connecting with others. I knew I wanted to speak today because it was so important to me to convey all of this, as well as my special relationship with my dad. Growing up, Dad was known for many things: the White Sox, the Bears, the Bulls, trips to Leonard's and the deli for bagel brunch Sundays, talk news radio, working until 7 or 8 p.m. and kibitzing with everyone he met. He loudly proclaimed that he did not understand women. However, he never gave up trying. Dad always tried to find ways to bond with his little Fluffy, as he fondly called me. We participated in Indian Princesses when I was about 6 or 7, where Dad roughed it camping, did arts and crafts, took me on getaways to Pheasant Run, and had lots of fun adventures. The group of fathers became so close that they separated from the YMCA and kept the group going on their own. This group turned into the men and amazing friends Dad played poker with for the last 40 or so years. Dad also loved that I enjoyed basketball. He would shoot around the driveway with me, but mostly we loved cheering on the Bulls together. But who wasn't cheering on the Bulls in the 90s? One year for my birthday, he found out the Bears, the Chicago Bears, the football team, were playing a basketball game as a fundraiser and planned to take me and a few friends to the game to celebrate. Looking back, it was a unique choice for a birthday party, but I loved it. As I got older, Dad always knew how to make me feel special. I remember how he would compliment my hair, or my dress, or my makeup every time I got dressed up for a mitzvah or school event. He gave the best hugs and knew exactly when I needed it. I always felt beautiful in his eyes. When I would get angry and have a mother-daughter teenage spat, he would try to talk to me, and while validating my feelings, he would say, "What do you want? She's a mashipu." He knew how to make me feel understood and calm me down in just a few words. I knew I found the right man when I decided to marry Brian because he had that same skill. Dad always believed in me. I remember when I was learning how to drive and we took a road trip to the West Coast, and he let me get so many practice hours driving on the highway. He said it was the best way to learn, and it was. When I entered high school, Dad knew I wanted to save money for a car. He helped me follow in my brother's footsteps and get my first real job at Leonard's Bakery, where I worked for most of my high school career. He would still come in and shop on Sundays, but I was able to bring home a few extra items as well. He loved their chocolate-covered mandel bread and chocolate coffee cake. I did save enough for a down payment at least. In high school, I also found my passion for singing. Dad jumped right on board. He joined the Men of GBN, comprised mostly of fathers and sons, which met before work on Thursday mornings, just to show his support and get involved. Working out was also a very big Dad activity. He would have his gym bag always in his trunk. I do think he changed his clothes, he just didn't move the bag. And he would go several days per week. Eventually, I asked if I could get a membership, and he followed through without much hesitation. Dad and I would go together to Bally Total Fitness on the weekends. He had his routine and I had mine, but we always encouraged each other and celebrated our successes. I remember being so proud of him because while my dad was overweight, he really did work out very hard and tried hard to keep himself healthy, and that was all I could truly ask of him. As the years passed, my relationship with Dad matured, and his support maintained and grew stronger. The man worked so tirelessly to make my dreams come true. When I found out I was accepted to Wash U, he found a way to make it happen. He never said no, just let me talk to them and see what I can do. I was set to start my full-time attendance second semester and live at home my first semester. Again, he helped me find a receptionist job at his dentist's office, Dr. Manning. Throughout the first semester, I would travel back and forth to Wash U, and he would always take me and pick me up from the airport. Once I became a full-time student, Mom and Dad would come for every a cappella concert, sorority event, and celebration, especially my 21st birthday. Dad truly showed me unwavering support and complete confidence in my decision-making. He knew that I was spreading myself so thin in grad school between going downtown, working out, working at the hospital, going to my practicum, and all he said was, I just don't know how you do it. When Dad fell and broke his hip around that time, it was the first time I truly felt I needed to turn the tables and take care of him. My brother, Brian, and I came together and found ways we could help Mom and Dad through this challenging time. Dad never protested. He knew how to adapt when he needed to, and he accepted help. He even helped to quiet my mother down when she was less than accepting. Dad was adaptable and did whatever we all thought was best. There have been so many times in my adulthood that Dad had to change course, work through a tough time, and alter his life significantly. Dad, you guys should probably move before it comes too hard to. Dad, why don't you move your office into my building since your office is changing? You can still have a workspace, still meet the guys for lunch, and you can still participate in the Northbrook Chamber. Dad, why don't you just go look at the dogs at the shelter? I know how much you miss Munchkin. Dad, you can't go to the grocery store. You could get COVID. Wait, what? You have lymphoma? Okay, we'll figure this out. Dad, I don't know how to tell you this, but Mom had an accident. My dad's adaptability was his superpower. Lastly, I want to add how I saw my dad as a grandfather to my children, nieces, and nephews. I have to say, as hard as my dad tried to bond with me and my siblings, he tried the same or more with his grandchildren. He attended as many events as he could, even the showcases of a one-week summer class. For Avielle and Micaela, I have to add that he even watched the tap dancing grannies while seeing Micaela perform and loved it. For as long as Dad could, even when he was sick, he would take his grandchildren to their activities, had fun with them at a local pumpkin fair, and never miss a chance to celebrate them. Just sitting next to them, he would engage them in their interests just to learn more about them. I am so happy and forever grateful that my children were able to know him for this long. Dad truly loved life, and he fought to stay with us as long as he could. He enjoyed every minute, and I feel so fortunate that I was able to make so many memories with him in these last few months. Thank you all for being here to celebrate Dad's life, legacy, and help his memory live on. If we take anything away from this day, myself included, please remember to be present with your family. Accept change and adapt. It's easier for yourself and everyone around you. Give your family extra hugs and kisses because you can never have enough. Thank you.
Extra hugs. So beautiful. Arno was born in Minneapolis to Peter and Betty, and he spent his childhood listening to music. His father was an instrumentalist, had a job with the symphony in Minneapolis, until they moved to Chicago when his father was hired here by the Chicago Symphony. And as you shared with me just the other day, some of Arno's fondest memories of his childhood were taking the L with his dad to listen to him practice with the orchestra. And although three of his uncles were also musicians, and Arno was musical, his parents made it abundantly clear that he was not to become a musician. The other distinct childhood memory you shared with me was the Sunday night dinners that he would have at his grandparents' flat. He remembers those dinners so fondly, and a neighbor, a child who was upstairs, who became one of his very, very good friends, and that's where his love of the White Sox began. He went to Senn High School and made his lifelong friends. And as we heard this morning, and as you told me, he was a great friend. He just knew how to connect with people. He didn't demand too much. He never got offended, you said. It was effortless for him to nurture his relationships. And this was a theme that was prevalent throughout his life. He wanted to be a pharmacist, and then he wanted to be an accountant. And there were twists and turns, and eventually a friend told him about the insurance business, and this is what became eventually his life's work. He was a great salesman, you told me. And again, he was great at cultivating those relationships. And Barry, you had the opportunity to work in his office, and you got to see this firsthand. He always had his clients' best interests at heart. It was never about the money. He had a strong work ethic. And this would lead him to win awards and trips, many of which he got to take with your mom. And he was proud of the life that he built and the work that he did. He met the love of his life, Marcia, on a blind date. A friend sent them up. And as you told me, their date was fun. It was multi-phased. It was dinner, and then there was a show, and then there was dessert, and he was very proud of this. They dated for about a year and got married. He was smitten with her. She knocked him off his feet. They loved celebrating their dating anniversary and their wedding anniversary. He called her his Mashi-Poo. And I asked you why they loved each other, and you simply told me, your dad adored your mom. And she loved the way she felt when she was with him, how he cared for her and how he treated her. She was the planner and the organizer, and he was happy to go along with anything and everything she asked. He was respectful, and he loved her parents. They shared the same values. Their Judaism was important to them. They joined BJBE, and they loved this synagogue. They loved being here, and they were fixtures here. And they so wanted a family. And a family they built with Lori and Barry and Stacey. And while you all had different relationships with your parents, it was evident that your dad loved you equally, and he just wanted to support you the best that he could. Barry, you told me that your dad was stern, and while you do remember stressful times as you look back at it now, admitting, yes, you weren't the easiest child, you believe that it was your dad trying to balance it all, trying to be a working man and a husband and a father and give your mom everything that she wanted. It wasn't easy. And yet, you all never doubted how much they loved you. And because of that, you also wanted to please them. You wanted to make him happy. As you got older, you said that Arno embraced everything you did. As we heard, you joined a heavy metal band, and your dad came to all your shows. He would tell you it wasn't his type of music, but he thought you were good, and he was really proud of you. And of course, when you wanted to be a mechanic, he would let you work on the cars in the driveway and then reseal the driveway. It's good. And later in life, when life was really particularly difficult, you moved in with your dad not once but twice. And as you shared, you really helped and supported one another. And Stacey, you told me that it wasn't easy when you were a child for your dad to figure out how to connect with you. And you do remember as you shared the Indian princess's time and asked her about Arno trying to set up a tent and how that went. And eventually, this group decided that camping was not for them, but they were going to go to the hotel instead. And that was a much better experience for everyone. And those relationships, as you shared with those fathers, became extraordinary and deep and long-lasting. And as your brother said, your dad was always supportive of the things you were involved in, theater and music. We heard about men at GBN, that choir, just so he would have something to share with you in singing with those concerts. He got you and Barry your first jobs at Leonard's, sent you to college of your choice. He wanted to please you, and because of the love that he showed you and everything that he gave you, it made it easy, you told me, to give back to him tenfold, especially in these later years. And as Brian shared, he's known the family since he was 15, and he had beautiful perceptions to offer the other day. He said Arno was always around, didn't travel for work, was home for dinner, and didn't miss an activity. He was non-judgmental and excited by all that the kids were involved with. You told me he led by example. He took care of his mother and his mother-in-law, coming over every week, not just in the last years of his life, but in the last several years, like 15 to 20 years. He wanted to make sure that they were taken care of. And Barry and Stacey, you did the same thing for your parents and for your dad. And when you couldn't be there, there were many wonderful caregivers that took care of Arno. And the family wanted me to especially mention Precious and Kasha. You provided Arno with such grace and dignity and wonderful care. Thank you. And as a grandfather, your grandpa, he loved you all very much. He was excited to reunite with you all. He wanted you to feel welcomed and accepted and loved. He loved getting to know and spend time with Callan, his great-grandson. Such a blessing for him. Avielle and Micaela, you remember how happy he was when you were there. He came to your recitals and your performances. He liked to draw with you, and you actually told me he was quite good. Yanni, Jerrick, Leilah, Pete, Chase, Avielle, Micaela, Callan. He simply loved and cherished you all. And in these last few months, Arno just wanted to be with you, his friends and family. He simply delighted in your presence. He found companionship with Sharon. He loved spending time with his dog, Lucy. He moved to Tamarisk, was even in the musical there just a few months ago, and once again, holding court, making friends with anyone and everyone. He appreciated everything. He had a goal of making it to his birthday, and he did. And you shared with me that in these last months, he was insatiable. He didn't want to miss life's opportunities. He wanted to do everything, movies, theater, dinner, baseball games, trips, anything he could do as long as he was doing it with you. He didn't want it to end. And you gave him the world, just as he had tried to give to you. Indeed, Arno leaves behind a legacy of which to be proud, one of innocence and sweetness, one of kindness and friendship, one of giving to a fault, one filled with Judaism and community, one filled with important and deep relationships. If he were here right now, he might say, "It is what it is." He would definitely tell you to be present and to enjoy every minute. And he would tell you that family is everything. May his memory be for a blessing. I invite you now, if you're able, to please rise. El male rachamim shochen b'maromim hamsei menucha nechona tachat kanafei hashchina im gedushim uteorim kezohar harakim azirim et nishmat Aharon ben Pesach v'Pesach shalach le'olamo Ba'al harachamim yastireu b'seiter kenavav le'olamim v'yitzror ha'chayim et nishmato Adonai hu nachalato v'yanuach b'shalom Al mishkavo venomar Amen. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Arno, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let him find refuge in your eternal presence and in the shadow of your wings. And let his soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is his inheritance. May he rest in peace. And we say together, Amen. Please be seated.
Friends, this concludes this portion of the service here at the sanctuary. The interment will continue at Shalom Memorial Park in Arlington Heights. Upon return from the cemetery today, the family will be together at the Price residence. That's 1753 Elmwood Drive in Highland Park. And again, that's today upon return from the cemetery until 8 p.m., and also Wednesday from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. That information is available inside the folders that you received as you arrived, and if you did not receive one, they will be made available as you depart. For those of you joining us via the live stream, that information is also available on our website. For those of you who will be joining us in procession to the cemetery, we will ask that once the family has been escorted out, you make your way immediately to your cars. We'll ask that you please keep your bright headlights and your hazard lights on at all times in the procession. And from our staff, please obtain an orange funeral safety sticker to place on the passenger side of your front windshield, as well as a flag. And please follow the vehicle in front of you as closely as safety permits, as we want to avoid any gaps in the procession. At this time, I will ask everyone to please rise as we escort the family from the sanctuary, after which I will ask if everyone again would please depart the sanctuary immediately, as the family would like to take a few final moments alone together privately here.